First laugh came from her ex. The second came from strangers. And by the time the whole coffee shop turned to stare, Barrett Evans was already standing in the middle of the room like a woman being publicly executed without blood. Brad Coleman looked her up and down with the kind of disgust that only cruel men wore proudly, then gave a sharp little laugh and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "You really thought I was going to marry you? Barrett, look at yourself. You're still fat, still desperate, still clinging." A few people gasped, but not because they wanted to help. They were shocked in the way people get shocked when humiliation is happening right in front of them and they secretly cannot look away. One woman near the pastry counter covered her mouth. A man in line smirked. Someone actually whispered, "Oh my God," with the kind of excitement usually reserved for a scandal. Barrett's hand tightened around the small gift bag she had brought for Brad, an anniversary present she now wished she had thrown in the trash. Her face burned. Her throat closed. For one long, horrible second she could not even breathe. Then Brad leaned closer and delivered the final blow like he had been saving it all night. "And just so we're clear," he said, pulling his arm back when she instinctively reached for him, "I'm already seeing someone better." Then he turned, walked past the staring crowd, and left her standing there with everyone's pity, judgment, and laughter stuck to her skin like dirt. Barrett did not cry right away. That would have been easier. Instead, she stood frozen with the gift bag crushed in her hand while the whispers spread around her like spilled poison. "That's insane. Did he really say that? In public? She looks like she's about to faint." The barista behind the counter asked if she was okay, but even that sounded like pity, and Barrett could not survive one more ounce of pity tonight. So she bent down, picked up the tissue paper that had fallen out of the bag, straightened without looking at anyone, and walked toward the door with every eye in the room glued to her back. Her body moved on instinct alone. She could not feel her feet. She could barely hear anything beyond the pulse pounding in her ears. Outside, Seattle greeted her with cold rain and blurred headlights. The second the cafe door shut behind her, her mask cracked. She made it only a few steps down the sidewalk before the tears hit, hard, ugly tears that bent her shoulders and stole her breath. She had given Brad 3 years of her life. 3 years of swallowing little insults disguised as jokes. 3 years of being told he only criticized her because he cared. 3 years of trying to shrink herself into the kind of woman he would not be embarrassed to stand beside. And tonight, in front of strangers, he had finally said out loud what he had been teaching her to believe for years, that she was too much to be loved and never enough to be chosen. She kept walking because standing still felt worse. Rain soaked through her coat, her hair stuck to her cheeks, her phone buzzed once in her bag, then again, then a third time. Barrett almost ignored it, almost. But some weak, ruined part of her still wanted to believe Brad might say sorry, might admit he had gone too far, might at least show enough shame to sound human. She dug her phone out with numb fingers and looked at the screen. The first text made her stomach twist. "Don't come back tonight. I need space." The second arrived before she could even process the first. "Leave your key on the kitchen counter." Barrett stopped under a streetlight, blinking at the words while rain ran over the screen. He was not just humiliating her. He was throwing her out on their anniversary, in the rain, after publicly destroying her. A broken laugh escaped her throat, small and cracked and almost childlike in its hurt. "Of course," she whispered to nobody. "Of course you are." Then bright headlights cut across the intersection. Tires screamed over wet pavement. Barrett looked up and saw a delivery truck skidding straight toward her. The impact never came. 1 second she was standing in the crosswalk, too shocked to move. The next, a violent rush of cold air slammed around her, and suddenly she was no longer in the street at all. Her back hit brick. Her lungs emptied. She found herself pressed against the wall of a narrow alley, soaked and gasping, while a tall man stood directly in front of her, one arm braced beside her head and the other wrapped around her wrist with firm, icy control. Not painful, not gentle. Just absolute. Barrett stared up at him, struggling to understand how she had crossed half the street in less than a heartbeat. The stranger was too still to be normal, too sharp to be safe. Dark hair slicked back from a pale face. A charcoal coat cut so perfectly it looked expensive even in the rain. and eyes so black they looked wrong until a passing headlight caught them and she saw the strange depth underneath, something dark violet, almost glowing, buried beneath the black. "Breathe," he said. His voice was low and controlled, not comforting in the slightest. It sounded like an order. Barrett dragged air into her lungs because somehow, impossibly, she obeyed him before she even thought. Her whole body shook. "You moved me," she whispered. "Yes. That truck would have killed me. Yes. That's not possible." His expression never changed. "And yet," he said quietly, "you are still alive." Barrett stared at him through the rain and let out one short, disbelieving laugh. "Great," she muttered, half hysterical now. "That's just great." His hand loosened on her wrist, though he did not step away. "You sound disappointed," he said. She looked past him toward the street where the truck had finally stopped and people were shouting in confusion. "Would have saved time," she said before she could stop herself. The words hung there between them. The stranger's face went even stiller somehow. "What?" he asked. Barrett swallowed. Her chest hurt. Her pride hurt. Everything hurt. "Getting hit," she said bitterly, wiping rain and tears from her face with the heel of her hand. "Seems cleaner than being laughed at by a room full of strangers and then kicked out by the man I wasted 3 years on." She expected pity. She expected discomfort. She expected that polite male silence that really meant "you are embarrassing me by crying." Instead, the stranger's jaw tightened with something dark and immediate. He glanced toward the street as if from this alley he could still see Brad halfway across the city. Then his eyes came back to her face and stayed there with unsettling intensity. He was not looking at her like Brad had, measuring, judging, calculating. He was looking at her as if he were trying to see something hidden beneath the damage. "Your ex is a fool," he said at last. Barrett almost laughed again. "No," she murmured. "He's honest. That's worse." The man stepped slightly closer. Rain rolled off the edge of his coat without seeming to touch him. "Cruel men often call their cruelty honesty," he said. "It sounds cleaner that way." Something in Barrett's chest shifted painfully at those words. She should have thanked him and left. She should have called a friend, found a motel, done anything except stay in an alley with a stranger whose presence felt impossible. But she was too shaken, too cold, too hollowed out by the night to trust her own instincts anymore. "Who are you?" she asked. He studied her for a moment, then answered, "Sebastian Blackwood." The name hid a half-formed memory. Barrett frowned. She had seen it in magazines, on glossy business covers, on the side of gleaming towers downtown. Blackwood Holdings, private fortune, untouchable reputation, rumors of old money and stranger things. "No," she said, shaking her head. "You're not." "I am. The Sebastian Blackwood. I rarely introduce myself as someone else." Under any other circumstances, the dry edge in his voice might have made her smile. Instead, she just stared at him harder. "What are you doing in a random coffee shop in the middle of a storm?" she asked. His eyes darkened in a way she did not understand. "Waiting," he said. "For who?" He held her gaze for 1 second too long. "Possibly," he said, "for you." Barrett gave him the kind of look she would have given any other strange man on any other night. "That would sound like a line," she said, "if tonight hadn't already become insane." To her surprise, one corner of his mouth moved, not quite a smile, but close enough to prove he remembered how. "Then I won't insult it by pretending it was casual." A black car rolled silently to the mouth of the alley as if summoned by thought alone. Barrett tensed immediately. Sebastian noticed. "Relax," he said. "If I intended to harm you, Miss Evans, you would already know." Her stomach dropped. "How do you know my name?" His expression did not change. "I make it my business to know many things." "That is deeply unsettling." "It was not meant to reassure you." The back door of the car opened, but no driver stepped out. Barrett looked from the car to Sebastian and back again, every survival instinct she had left screaming at her not to get in. Strange billionaire. Midnight rain. No witnesses she could trust. A shattered emotional state. This was exactly the kind of choice women later regretted while asking themselves why they had ignored every sign. Then her phone buzzed again. She looked down and saw Brad's name on the screen with another text. "Are you seriously ignoring me? Don't make this dramatic." Barrett stared at the message until something hot and furious rose beneath the humiliation. He had publicly humiliated her, thrown her out and still expected her to manage his feelings on the same night he destroyed hers. Sebastian watched her face change with unnerving precision. "You have nowhere safe to go tonight," he said. It was not a question. Barrett hated how accurately he had seen through her. "I have somewhere to go," she snapped weakly. "No," he said. "You have an address that no longer wants you there." The line struck hard enough to make her flinch. For the first time since she met him, some slight trace of softness touched his voice. "Come with me," he said. "Dry clothes, a locked door, food, one night without laughter." Barrett should have said no. Instead, maybe because she was freezing, maybe because she was exhausted, maybe because shame had already scraped her down to something raw and reckless, she got into the car. The inside smelled like cedar leather and something darker she could not name. Sebastian sat across from her in the low light, calm and perfectly composed, as if dragging women out of traffic was routine for him. City lights flashed through the windows, painting his face in silver and shadow. Barrett realized she was still holding the anniversary gift bag. It looked pathetic now. She shoved it under the seat. Sebastian noticed that too. "You bought him a gift," he said. Barrett gave a tired, bitter laugh. "I was stupid." "No," he said quietly. "You were loyal." She turned her face toward the window before he could see how much those words hurt. "That sounds nicer," she murmured, "but it still ends the same way." Silence settled between them for a while. Then Sebastian spoke again, his voice lower now, older somehow. "Pain often arrives wearing the face of love," he said. "That does not make it love." Barrett turned back to him. On anyone else, the line would have sounded dramatic. On him, it sounded like a truth learned too slowly and paid for too dearly. "You sound like someone who knows betrayal," she said. For the first time, something dangerous crossed his face. Not anger exactly, but memory sharpened into something almost feral. "I know what betrayal does to blood," he replied. "That is close enough." The penthouse looked less like a home and more like another species of reality. Black marble, glass walls, gold light so soft it made the whole city below look unreal. A woman in a dark uniform appeared almost instantly with towels and dry clothes, then disappeared again before Barrett could even form a thank you. No one asked her questions. No one stared. No one smirked. The silence in the place felt expensive and eerie, like even the walls had been trained never to speak out of turn. A doctor arrived within minutes to check the bruise on her wrist where Sebastian had grabbed her, and Barrett found that strange too, because she had not seen anyone make a call. Through all of it, Sebastian never hovered, never touched her again, never once looked at her body the way men usually did when they thought women were weak enough not to notice. He stood by the window like some pale, beautifully dressed threat and let everyone else take care of her while he watched the city with unreadable stillness. Barrett sat wrapped in a blanket on a velvet sofa and tried to stop shaking. Finally, because she could not stand the silence anymore, she asked the question that had been clawing at her since the alley. "Why are you helping me?" Sebastian turned. For one unguarded instant, something raw flashed in his eyes before it disappeared. "Because I heard what he said to you," he answered. "And because I do not enjoy watching beautiful things broken for sport." Barrett froze. Her ex had called her embarrassing, heavy, too much, unwanted. This impossible stranger had called her beautiful in the same tone someone else might use to state the weather, without charm, without pity, without trying to get something from her. That almost hurt worse. She stood too quickly, the room tilted under her feet. Before she could stumble, Sebastian moved. Not crossed the room, not stepped forward, moved. 1 second he was near the window. The next he was right in front of her, hands on her elbows, catching her before she fell. Barrett's breath caught. His skin was cold again, not regular cold, not rain cold, the kind of cold that belonged to deep winter and old graves. She stared up at him, pulse kicking faster. "How did you do that?" she whispered. Sebastian let go immediately, as if he had touched something dangerous. "You are tired," he said. Barrett's eyes narrowed. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "That thing where you act like I imagined something impossible just because tonight has already been insane." Something almost approving flickered across his face. "Good," he said quietly. "Keep that anger." Barrett blinked. "Why?" He looked at her for a long time before he answered. "Because you will need it when the truth arrives." The room seemed to contract around the words. Barrett felt the blanket slipping from her shoulders, but she barely noticed. "What truth?" she asked. Sebastian glanced toward the glass wall, toward the city beyond it, toward some thought darker than the storm still rumbling over Seattle. "That the man who spent 3 years making you feel small," he said, "was not doing it by accident." Barrett went very still. "No. He did not humiliate you tonight because he suddenly became cruel," Sebastian continued. "He humiliated you because he was no longer required to keep pretending." "Stop." Her voice cracked, but he did not stop. "He kept you ashamed," Sebastian said, each word colder now, sharper. "Hidden, isolated, grateful for scraps. Because as long as you believed you were lucky to be tolerated, you would never ask why so many doors in your life stayed closed." Barrett backed up one step, her face draining. "Stop. He was not breaking you because he hated you," Sebastian said. "He was keeping you small because if the wrong people ever noticed what you are, everything changes." Barrett stared at him like he had gone mad. "What I am?" she repeated. "I'm a woman who just got dumped in public by a narcissist. That's what I am." Sebastian's expression became unreadable again. "No," he said. "You are something much rarer than that." Barrett laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Okay, no, absolutely not. I am done. I got humiliated, almost killed, dragged into a billionaire's penthouse, and now you're speaking in riddles like some gothic lunatic. I don't know what game this is, but I'm not playing." She turned to move past him. That was when a wave of nausea hit her so hard she doubled over. Heat twisted low in her stomach, sudden and sharp enough to steal her breath. Barrett gripped the edge of the sofa, trying not to be sick. The sensation passed almost as quickly as it arrived, leaving behind a strange, heavy warmth in her body that did not feel like ordinary illness. She looked up, breathing hard. Sebastian had gone completely still. Not concerned, not confused, something else. His eyes were locked on her stomach with the kind of cold recognition that makes fear spread before words ever do. "What?" Barrett whispered. He did not answer. Thunder rolled outside. The city lights reflected in the glass behind him. Then, in a voice so low it almost sounded like a curse, Sebastian said, "No, that is impossible." Barrett straightened slowly, one hand still pressed against her stomach. "What is impossible?" she asked. Sebastian looked up at her face as though whatever he saw there only made things worse. Every line of his body had gone rigid. Every trace of detached control had vanished. "Sebastian," she said, louder now, fear climbing fast into her throat. "What is wrong with me?" He took one small step back, as if distance might help him think. It did not. His gaze returned to her stomach, then rose to meet her eyes with something far more dangerous than desire. Awe. Barrett's pulse began to hammer. "Tell me," she demanded. He exhaled once, hard and controlled. "If I am right," he said, and for the first time his voice roughened, "the man who humiliated you tonight may have just thrown away the only thing in this city powerful enough to destroy him." Barrett stared at him, cold from the inside out. "What does that mean?" He looked at her for one terrible beat, then answered with a quiet that felt heavier than shouting. "It means," he said, "your life did not begin ending in that coffee shop." His eyes dropped once more to the hand she still held over her stomach. "It began changing." A second wave of thunder shook the glass. Somewhere far below, the city kept moving, unaware that in a penthouse high above the rain, a broken woman and a dangerous stranger had just stepped across a line neither of them could uncross. Barrett did not yet know about the hidden courts beneath Seattle, or the monsters dressed in tailored suits, or the war's old bloodlines had been fighting in silence for centuries. She did not know why Sebastian Blackwood looked at her now like he had seen a prophecy come to life. And she definitely did not know that, in another part of the city, Brad Coleman was already making a call that would ensure this night became the worst mistake of his life. All Barrett knew was that the shame she had walked in carrying no longer felt like the biggest thing inside her. Something else was there now, something alive, impossible, and waiting. And when Sebastian finally looked back into her eyes, the calm billionaire mask was gone. In its place stood something older, darker, and infinitely more dangerous. "You need to trust me," he said. Barrett's laugh came out hollow. "That seems unlikely." His stare never wavered. "Then trust this," he said. "If anyone learns what you are before I confirm it, they will come for you." Barrett's breath caught. "Who?" The storm growled against the glass as his answer fell into the room like a blade. "Everyone." Barrett did not sleep that night. She tried. The bed was soft, the room was warm, and the city lights outside looked peaceful, but every time she closed her eyes, she heard Brad's voice again. "You're still fat. Dead weight." Then she saw the truck. Then she saw Sebastian's eyes in the alley, cold, sharp, impossible. By 3 a.m. she gave up. She wrapped the silk robe tighter around herself and stepped into the hallway. The penthouse was silent in a strange way, like even the walls were hiding secrets. A soft golden light came from a room at the end. Barrett should have gone back. Instead, she walked toward it. The door was half open. Sebastian stood inside with his back to her, one hand on a desk, the other holding a phone that was already cracked in his grip. Glass pieces were scattered on the floor. He looked calm, but not really. Something in him was breaking under control. A voice came from the damaged phone on speaker. "If it's really her, you can't hide it. The council will know. The Lycans too." Sebastian's jaw tightened. "Then I'll deal with them," he said coldly. "You sound afraid," the voice replied. "No," Sebastian said quietly. "I sound prepared." The voice laughed once. "Prepared men don't sound like they're about to lose something." The line went silent. Barrett stepped back, but the floor made a small sound. Sebastian turned instantly. His eyes found her in a second. No surprise, no confusion, just awareness. "I wasn't trying to listen," Barrett said quickly. "You weren't trying to be alone," he corrected. She crossed her arms. "Who was that?" "Someone who understands danger," he said. "And what danger are we talking about?" His answer came simple. "You." Barrett let out a tired breath. "That answer is getting really old." He motioned toward a chair. "Sit." That sounded like an order. Sometimes orders are kinder than warnings. Barrett hesitated, then sat. Sebastian stayed standing. He looked down at her like someone about to change her entire world. "I'm going to tell you something that sounds insane," he said. "You are not allowed to panic." Barrett gave a weak smile. "You lost me at that sentence." He ignored it. "There are things living in this city that humans don't see," he said. "Older, stronger, hidden." "You mean criminals?" she asked. "No," he said. "I mean vampires." The word stayed in the air, heavy, real. Barrett stared at him, waiting for a joke. None came. "No," she said slowly. "No, that's not real." "It is," he replied. "And you already know I'm not normal." Barrett stood up fast. "Fast reflexes don't make you a vampire." Sebastian didn't argue. He simply picked up a silver object from the desk, pressed it to his palm, and cut. Blood appeared, then disappeared instantly as the skin healed in front of her eyes. Barrett froze. "No," she whispered again, but this time weaker. He bent the metal in his hand like it was soft plastic and placed it back on the table. "Do you need more proof?" he asked calmly. She shook her head, unable to speak. Her world didn't just crack, it broke completely. She stepped back until the desk hit her legs. "This is insane," she whispered. "Yes," he said, "that part is true." Barrett dragged a hand through her hair. "So what now? You're a vampire billionaire and I'm just here." "You're not just here," he said. "You are the reason this is happening." Her stomach dropped. "Why?" she asked. His answer came immediately. "Because humans and vampires are not supposed to create children." Barrett blinked. "What?" Silence filled the room. Then she laughed sharp, confused. "We haven't even touched like that." "No," he said, "we haven't." Realization hit her and her face went pale. "You think I'm pregnant." "I think something reacted when I touched you," he said. "That means nothing," she snapped. "It means too much," he replied. Barrett turned away, breathing fast. "Explain properly." Sebastian exhaled slowly. "There are rare human bloodlines," he said. "Very rare. Most people don't even know they exist. Some of them can do things that should be impossible." Barrett's voice dropped. "And you think I'm one of them?" "I know you are," he said. "And your ex, he wasn't just cruel." Her heart started racing again. "What do you mean?" "He didn't break you by accident," Sebastian said. "He kept you small on purpose." Barrett shook her head. "No, he kept you ashamed," Sebastian continued. "Hidden, quiet, because if someone powerful noticed you, everything would change." Barrett's chest tightened. "Why would anyone care about me?" Sebastian's answer was simple and dangerous. "Because you are valuable." That word hit harder than every insult Brad had ever said. "Valuable." Barrett laughed weakly. "No, I've spent my whole life being told the opposite." "That's how control works," Sebastian said. "It teaches you to doubt your own worth." Barrett turned away, tears burning again, but this time mixed with something else. Anger. 3 years, she whispered. 3 years I thought I was the problem. You weren't, he said. You were the target. Before she could answer, pain hit her stomach again, harder this time. Barrett gasped and bent forward. Heat spread through her body, sharp and strange. Sebastian moved instantly but stopped himself from touching her. Barrett. I'm fine, she forced out. She was. The pain faded, but something else remained. A deep, heavy feeling, alive, watching. Barrett slowly looked up. Sebastian was staring at her stomach again, but now his expression had changed completely. Not confusion, not curiosity, recognition. Pure, cold recognition. When was your last period? He asked. Barrett stared at him. Are you serious right now? Answer me. She hesitated, then counted in her head. Her face went pale. 6 weeks, she said quietly. Maybe 7. Sebastian closed his eyes for 1 second. When he opened them again, something inside them had shifted, dark but glowing underneath. No, he whispered. That's not possible. Barrett's heartbeat sped up. Stop saying that, she said. Tell me what's happening. He looked at her, really looked this time. And when he spoke again, his voice carried something new. Not control, not calm, something close to fear. If I'm right, Sebastian said slowly, you are carrying something this world should not be able to create. Barrett took a step back. No. Yes. No, she repeated, shaking her head. That's not real. Sebastian didn't argue this time. He just said one line that changed everything. Then why did your body react the moment I touched you? Silence fell between them, heavy, unavoidable. Barrett's hand slowly moved to her stomach again, and for the first time, she didn't feel empty. She felt something there. And it terrified her. Barrett didn't speak for a long time. Her hand stayed on her stomach as if moving it would make everything real. The room felt too quiet, too heavy, like the air itself was waiting. No, she said again, but this time it wasn't denial, it was fear. No, this is not happening. Sebastian didn't interrupt her. He didn't try to calm her. He just watched like he knew this moment couldn't be softened. I didn't do anything, Barrett whispered. I didn't choose this. I know. He said quietly. Then how? She asked, her voice breaking. That question changed everything. The answer came faster than she expected and darker. Within minutes, a doctor arrived. Not a normal doctor, a calm woman with sharp eyes and steady hands. She introduced herself as Dr. Vale and didn't waste time. Barrett was taken into a private medical room hidden inside the penthouse. Machines turned on, lights dimmed. The silence became tense. I want a normal test, Barrett said, trying to stay in control. You'll have one, Dr. Vale replied, but I don't think normal applies anymore. Sebastian stayed in the corner, silent but watching everything. The test didn't take long, but the moment after felt endless. Dr. Vale looked at the result, then at Barrett, then at Sebastian. Positive, she said. Barrett let out a short, broken laugh. No, that's wrong. Her mind started racing. Then suddenly memory, a night, a party, too much drink, blurred vision, Brad helping her home, darkness, no clear memory after that. Her stomach dropped. No, she whispered. He would. Sebastian's expression darkened instantly. Tell me, he said, voice dangerously calm. Barrett explained what little she remembered. The more she spoke, the colder the room felt. Sedation, Dr. Vale said quietly, or control. Barrett felt sick. You think he used me? She asked, barely able to say the words. Sebastian didn't answer, but his silence was worse than any answer. Something inside him snapped, but he held it back. Barely. Dr. Vale turned the screen toward them. There's more. Barrett looked at the scan, a small shape, a heartbeat, but not normal. The sound was slower, stronger, heavier, like something ancient. Barrett's hand covered her mouth. That's my baby, she whispered. Dr. Vale hesitated. It's not fully human. Barrett looked at Sebastian. Say it. He didn't move. Say what you think. His voice came low and rough. I think someone used you to create something impossible. Barrett's chest tightened. Against who? Sebastian met her eyes. Against me. Everything stopped. No, Barrett said immediately. This has nothing to do with you. It shouldn't, he replied, but it does. Then say it's not yours, she demanded. He didn't answer, and that silence said everything. Barrett stepped back, shaking. This is insane, all of it. I'm pregnant, monsters are real, and somehow I'm standing here with a vampire king talking about war. Yes, Sebastian said, because that's exactly what this is. He told her everything, about vampires hidden in power, about lichens controlling the streets, about rare bloodlines like hers watched, controlled, used, about how men like Brad were tools sent to keep people like her weak and unnoticed. Barrett listened in silence, at first in shock, then in anger, real anger. So he didn't just hurt me, she said slowly. He controlled me. Yes. He made me feel small on purpose. Yes. Barrett looked down, every insult, every moment of shame, every time she blamed herself. Not random, planned. Something inside her broke, but something else rose. Before she could speak again, pain hit her stomach stronger than before. She gasped and grabbed the table. A glass nearby shattered without anyone touching it. Sebastian moved instantly. "It's reacting," he said. "What is?" she asked. His answer was quiet and terrifying. "The child." Barrett froze, the broken glass, the shaking air, the pressure building in the room. "That was me," she whispered. "No," Sebastian said. "That was your baby." That was the moment everything changed. Not when she found out she was pregnant, not when she learned monsters were real, but when she realized she wasn't weak anymore. She was the center of something powerful. And power always attracts enemies. It happened fast, too fast. The glass wall behind them exploded inward. Barrett screamed as three massive figures crashed into the penthouse. Not human, not fully animal, lichens. Their eyes locked on her stomach immediately, not on Sebastian, on her. "So it's true," one of them growled. "The king finally has an heir." Barrett's blood ran cold. Sebastian stepped in front of her, calm but deadly. "Stay behind me." The first lichen attacked. It didn't last a second. Sebastian moved faster than sight, slamming it across the room like it weighed nothing. The second came from the side, same result. But the third went straight for Barrett. For 1 second she froze. That old version of her, the scared, broken girl, almost took over. Then something inside her snapped. She moved. Not perfectly, not gracefully, but she moved. She grabbed a broken glass piece and struck. The lichen roared. That moment was enough. Sebastian finished it instantly. But the damage was done. The pain hit again. Stronger, brighter, like fire inside her. And then, everything exploded. A shockwave burst out from Barrett's body. Not from her hands, not from her mind, from deep inside her. The lichens were thrown across the room, glass shattered, walls cracked. Silence followed. Barrett stared at her own hands, shaking. "What was that?" she whispered. Sebastian looked at her, not shocked. "Certain." The last lichen laughed weakly from the floor. "Now you understand," he said. "That's not just a child, that's the end of your kind." Then he died. Sebastian didn't look at the body. He looked at Barrett. For the first time, the Vampire King looked unsure. Hours later, everything had changed. Barrett stood outside a private club, staring through the glass. Brad was inside, laughing, like nothing had happened, like she meant nothing. Sebastian stood beside her. "You don't have to do this," he said. Barrett didn't look at him. "No," she replied, "I do." She walked inside. The music was loud. People were smiling, living normal lives. Brad saw her and laughed. "You again," he said loudly. "Still not done embarrassing yourself." Some people laughed. But Barrett didn't flinch. She stepped closer, calm, controlled. "Say it again," she said quietly. Brad smirked. "What, that you're still?" He stopped. Because suddenly, he couldn't breathe. The room went silent. Glass started shaking. Brad dropped to his knees, choking. "What did you do?" he gasped. Barrett didn't touch him, didn't shout, didn't move. You spent 3 years making me feel small, she said. The pressure increased. You told me I was nothing. Brad collapsed fully. You called me dead weight. Barrett leaned slightly closer. And now, she whispered, you feel it too. Silent, heavy, terrifying. Then she stepped back and walked away. No anger, no tears, just power. Sebastian followed her out. Do you regret it? He asked. Barrett didn't stop walking. No, she said. Then she added one line that changed everything. I was never too much. I was just surrounded by people who were too small. Thunder rolled in the sky. War was coming. But this time, Barrett wasn't the victim. She was the reason everything would change. Now tell me, if power finally came into your hands, would you use it to protect yourself? Or to destroy everyone who ever broke you? Backhand index pointing down, comment below. Thumbs up, like if you felt this story. Bell, subscribe for more dark emotional stories.